Let's give a nice round of applause to the ensemble from Little Rock Southwest under the direction of Mr. Jose Holloway. You guys can do better than that. Give it up for Little Rock Southwest. At this time, we direct your attention to the screen because we're about to get started. If you don't mind taking a shot of that QR code that's on the screen, that's how you can access the program. Also, when you came in, you should have been able to click on the QR code to register for your professional development hours. If you did not, you can do that when you leave. Don't forget we have lunch for everybody, so don't leave without some tasty lunch. Compliments of our child nutrition team. We are about to get started, so if you will go ahead and please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand and welcome the NJROTC from Parkview Magnet High School for the presentation of colors, followed by the national anthem featuring Miss Amanda Hood from Stevens Elementary.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated. Another round of applause for Miss Amanda Hood from Stevens Elementary. And our NJROTC from Parkview, Patriots. If you will, please now welcome to the stage from Pinnacle View Middle School, Mr. Ethan Gong.
Good morning and welcome back to the start of another amazing school year. I hope everyone has found their summer relaxing and refreshing because you deserve it. Over the past 11 years, I've spent more time with teachers at school than I have even with my own parents. And the more time I spend...
Ethan, we hate to interrupt. If you don't mind grabbing that microphone.
Oh,
we want to be able
sorry.
to hear you. Thank you.
And the more time I spend, the more I start to realize how difficult the job is. Teaching and taking care of children's diverse needs is challenging. But when awesome teachers are backed up by knowledgeable administrators and staff, it can change a student's life, like mine. In 3rd grade, I had a teacher named Miss Snodgrass. She was bright, caring, and exceptionally funny. Back then, I was the quiet kid. The one that was afraid to socialize with anyone other than my really close friends and relatives. Then one day, she handed me a form to enter my first public speaking contest. At first, I was obstinate not to go, thinking of it as a joke. But after encouragement from Miss Snodgrass, in the end, I decided to take my best shot. And, in the end, I decided to take my best shot, and even though I didn't end up placing, it started the wave of growth and confidence, which has led me here today. I will forever remember her, and to all of you teachers who have changed students' lives for the better, I would like to thank you on the behalf of my fellow students. And just know it makes an impact. While teachers themselves nurture and influence students, the classified employees, as well as the administrative and support staff, are the cherry on top. They all make sure that the environment and schedule of our classes are clean and organized. So I would like to personally welcome back and thank the nurses, parapros, custodians, bus drivers, and child nutrition workers. As well as the principals, secretaries, and counselors, and many more. What you do is not going unnoticed, and I thank you for your splendid service. With our schools left in these hands, there's absolutely nothing to worry about. With all our amazing staff and teachers, I'm sure this year will be just as good as any and better. So let's start accomplishing dreams together and show the world what we've got. Go be awesome. Thank you.
We can do much better than that. That is our own Mr. Ethan Gong from Pinnacle View Middle School. And we know your proud principal, Miss Takesha Campbell, is back at her building just cheering you on. So you guys make some noise so Pinnacle View know you're in the house celebrating today. At this time, we will have our unified school spirit presentation from all of the cheerleaders from our high schools, as well as ambassadors from Little Rock West. Give it up for our cheerleaders and ambassadors. Cheerleaders, please go to the stage for the roll call. All schools, all districts represented today.
I'll bring it back.
Can I get a wait? They're not gonna do it. We can be loud.
Bell Elementary. Baseline Elementary. Brady Elementary. Carver Magnet Elementary. Carver Early Childhood Center. Chico Elementary. Cloverdale Middle School. Dunbar Middle School. Central High School. And Metropolitan.
Chico Early Childhood Center. Fair Park Early Childhood Center. Forest Park Elementary. Fulbright Elementary. Geyer Springs.
Geyer Springs!
Gibbs Magnet Elementary. Forest Heights STEM Academy.
Go Forest Heights!
Hall Magnet High School. Hamilton.
Ignite Digital Academy.
Ignite Digital Academy in the house.
Jefferson Elementary.
Go Jefferson.
King Elementary.
Yay, King.
Mapleville Elementary. McDermott Elementary. Mapleville Middle School. Man Magnet Middle School. Parkview Magnet High School. And Career Technical Education.
Otter Creek Elementary. Pulaski Heights Elementary. Roberts Elementary. Rockefeller Early Childhood Center. Roman Early Childhood. That's Stevens Elementary. Stevens Elementary. Pinnacle View Middle School. Southwest Magnet High School. To be a Gryffindor! Woo! We done. Okay. Adult education. Y'all West. Y'all West. There you go.
Ter- Terry Ella. Oh, shoot. Terry Elementary. Wakefield Elementary. Washington Elementary. Watson Elementary. Washington Elementary. Watson Elementary. Western Hills Elementary. Williams Magnet Elementary. Pulaski Heights Middle School. West Magnet High School.
J.A. Fair K-8 Academy, let's show them some love. Thanks again, cheerleaders, spirit groups. Let's give our cheerleaders a nice round of applause as they leave the stage. Cheerleaders, you may take your seats. Thank you very much. As they are taking their seats, we are getting ready to pull names for door prizes. A couple of the cheerleaders from Central, since you're on that side, would you help us with pulling door prizes? We remind those of you who are watching virtually and those of you who are in the audience here with us at Little Rock Southwest to please use our social media hashtags, LRSD Power of Us, LRSD Convocation 22, and hashtag Reimagining LRSD. If you use any of those hashtags, you will show up on our social media wall. At this time, we have door prizes. Compliments of federal programs, a $25 Amazon gift card.
Who's going to grab one?
Jerry Pack. Jerry Pack. Maintenance and operations. That's what that is.
Jerry Powell Maintenance and Operations. We're drawing now for two $100 Kroger gift cards, compliments of Kroger.
Sarah Case Gibbs.
Repeat that name, please.
Sarah Case Gibbs.
There are two. One more.
One more.
Gina Goad, Otter Creek ES.
Compliments of our VIPS Board of Directors, a $75 gift card from Wordsworth Books.
Tia Larry, Carver STEM Magnet ES.
A karaoke machine donated by the VIPS board. Please remember your prizes from VIPS must be claimed by September 30th. The value is $80.
Mary Miles, Southwest.
A $25 U.S. pizza gift card, compliments of communications.
Kendrick Rollins, Hamilton.
Another $25 gift card, compliments of the communications department to U.S. Pizza.
Amy White, ML King ES.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to these winners. Please stay tuned because we have more wonderful door prizes. Please welcome to the stage now for a motivational message, our 2022 LRSD Teacher of the Year from Mablevale Elementary, and she comes with her own cheering section, Miss Kara McGee.
Good morning. My name is Kara McGee, and I am so honored and blessed to be your Little Rock School District Teacher of the Year. I would like to give a quick shout out to my school, Mablevale Elementary, my family, and my friends for all the love and support through this process. Now I want to give a shout out to each and every one of you for making it through one of the most difficult school years. Every day you chose to go to work in the midst of a pandemic. You learned new educational platforms. You became technology savvy. You taught both virtually and in person at the same time. You implemented new practices to reach your students socially, emotionally, and academically. So please stand on your feet and give yourself a round of applause. I was a child in kindergarten who cried every day, and I mean every day. My kindergarten teacher was so patient and gentle with me. She created a safe place for me in the classroom, which was an actual bathtub, where she allowed me to go whenever I needed a moment. She spoke lightly yet firm to me. Although I was probably deemed as a difficult student, she never let me slip through, and she still held me to those kindergarten expectations. 25 years later, I will never forget how safe and loved she made me feel. In 9th grade, I was placed in an AP English class. Being my first AP class, my mom, a former teacher herself, had a few concerns she wanted to address with my teacher. My teacher let my mom express herself, and when she was finished, my teacher said, "Miss McGee, don't worry. Kara will be successful in this class. Yes, it may be challenging, but she is capable of success, and I will ensure that she is." And she did. Not only did she ensure that I was successful, she deepened my love for reading and created a new love for writing. As I reflect on these memories, I think about the amount of power these teachers had. They had so much power that till this day, they still have an influence on me. As we go into the 2022-2023 school year, I want you to remember your power. The power you have to foster a safe and engaging environment. The power you have to change the pathway for so many students. You have the power to make a 25-year difference. So when the school year begins to get stressful and chaotic, I challenge you to always remember and embrace your power. Teachers, the power is with us. Thank you.
You guys can do much better than that. That's our Teacher of the Year. A regional finalist for Arkansas. Thank you very much, Ms. Kara McGee from Mableville Elementary. Our next speakers are back by popular demand. They had the honor of introducing the superintendent at his reception, his welcoming reception when he first arrived in Little Rock. And now they are joining us again this morning to do the honors. Would you please put your hands together and welcome Miss Willa Brashears from Wakefield Elementary, Miss Abigail Edwards from Forest Heights STEM Academy for our introduction of the superintendent.
Good morning. I'm Abigail Edwards. I'm going to the 6th grade, now attend Forest Heights STEM Academy. I'm very excited to be here with my new friend, Willa Brashears.
Thanks, Abigail. This is pretty awesome. It's not every day that you get to introduce a new superintendent.
And it's not every day that you get to speak in front of hundreds of people at the Little Rock Southwest High School.
Wow, but we are definitely up to the task. That's what great schools and leaders prepare you to do.
That's right, Willa. So let's do it. To the LRSD family and LRSD board, welcome.
For those who don't know much about him, it is also our pleasure to introduce him to you. Since building makeshift blackboards and teaching neighborhood children in the backyard of his childhood home in Florida, in Florida, Dr. Wright knew as a young person that he wanted to be a teacher. He began his career in 1997 and taught 2001. He taught 5th grade and middle school social studies. He moved into an administration role working in Florida and D.C. as an assistant principal and a principal.
Dr. Wright is considered a turnaround school administrator. He successfully transformed 2 elementary schools, getting them out of turnaround status. In 2013, he joined Denver Public Schools as an instructional superintendent, transforming schools that were not performing well. By 2016, 75% of Denver schools had improved and moved off the district's intervention list.
In 2017, Dr. Wright joined the Birmingham City School District, where the number of failing schools decreased from 22 to 6. The number of schools that were rated C or better went improved from 6 to 17. Recognized for his great ability to lead in April 2019, the Mississippi State Board of Education appointed Dr. Wright as the founding superintendent of the Mississippi Achievement School District. And in just 3 years, the graduation rates improved from 67% to 85% in Yazoo City, and from 78% to 91% in Humphreys County.
In addition to his work as an accomplished K-12 leader, Dr. Wright is also an experienced college and university instructor. He has undergraduate and graduate degrees in education. He received his Doctor of Education degree in leadership for educational equity with a specialization in early childhood special education from the University of Colorado, Denver.
All of that is impressive, but do you know what he's most proud of? Being a proud dad.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a nice Little Rock welcome to Dr. Jamal Wright.
Testing one. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning again. Good morning. Still not to a satisfactory level, so we'll try it one more time. Good morning. Good morning. So we almost had a Bring It battle on stage a few minutes ago. And so I know that we can do much better than that. And so I'm going to say good morning one more time, but I want you to respond with a level of excitement that you have. Well, maybe that's not a good. Fake the level of excitement that you have for this upcoming school year. Good morning. So over the last couple of weeks, I have talked more about myself in the 4 community meetings that we have had over the last 2 weeks than I think I have in my entire life. So I definitely want to take this moment not to talk anything about me, but I want to take this opportunity to motivate us, to inspire us, to fire us up, and to motivate us and to prepare us for this upcoming school year. I have never been as excited for a first day of school as I am today. Ever since I've arrived here in Little Rock, the weekend of Memorial Day when I physically moved, I have been welcomed, accepted, greeted with open arms everywhere that I've gone. I am so excited about the potential that we have as a school district to not only be a great school district in our nation, in our state, but to be a beacon and example of what it means to be a high-performing urban school district in our country. That deserves some round of applause. And so today I want to take a moment and ask you to journey with me using your imagination and using your mind with a thought that you've seen since you've been here, reimagining LRSD. And so if there's not anything else that we are good of as educators, we are very great at catchphrases and coming up with all different types of cute slogans and words that we use in our profession. Here are just a few that I thought of when I was preparing for today. And I'm not going to read every single one of them. I'm just going to display them here. And you may be able to see it, or if you don't have that great of eyesight, it may be a challenge. We were very good at coming up with catchphrases and slogans as educators. Some of them stick, some of them really resonate, some of them we find ways to really make these catchphrases catch on, and we use them. We use them to motivate our staff, we use them to motivate our students, and other times they kind of fall flat. My goal and dream is that reimagining LRSD will be a catchphrase that sticks with us for a while. What does it mean to reimagine? It means to imagine again or to imagine anew, to form a new conception of something, to recreate. Some synonyms of reimagine are rethink, to reconsider, to revisit, redefine, readdress, rearrange, look at it in a different light, do an about face, go back over, or reframe. What does it mean to reimagine LRSD? So if you'll indulge me for just a moment, I would like you to close your eyes. Close your eyes, and I want you to try to forget about things like COVID, things like monkeypox. Put all that stuff out of your mind. And I want you to take just a few moments and think about what our district would look like if it was a dream district to you. What would LRSD look like? What would we be doing if we were a dream school district to you? It's necessary for us to reimagine what we can be as a school district, because if we keep doing the same things that we've always done, we'll keep getting the same results, which is the definition of insanity. So the question that I want to pose to everyone who is here in our audience and who is watching at your school buildings or office buildings all throughout the city is there a consensus in our district to do some things differently. Now, I must, oh, okay, well, I guess we have at least one person who thinks so. And I emphasize the word some, because there are a lot of great things that we do well as a district. If you've been paying attention to some of the community meetings that we've had, I spend some time talking about all the great and wonderful things that we have accomplished and how great we are as a school district. We have a lot to celebrate. I credit Mr. Poore, my successor? No, I'm his successor, predecessor, thank you, with a lot. You know, I am not Mr. Poore. I can never be Mr. Poore, although we both have bald heads. I credit him a lot for bringing stability to our school district. He didn't have the best entry into our school district, being that he was the face of the state takeover into our district, but he did a lot of great things, and there are certainly things in his administration that we will definitely continue. So I definitely want to acknowledge him, and I definitely want to acknowledge each of you for all of the great things that you have accomplished as a district over the last couple of years. If you remember, I gave you a survey the last week of school in May of last school year to assess various things. One of the questions that was in that survey is, we are all working towards the same goal in LRSD. And again, this is designed to kind of answer this question, is there consensus in our district that we want to do some things differently? I think the interesting thing about the results from this particular survey is that we had about 476 people respond from the district level and 1,152 employees respond from the school level. Now, typically in a survey, to have a good sample size, you only need about 10% of the population to respond to be able to make some generalizations about what the larger population thinks and feels. But the number of people that we had to complete this survey, it was over 50% of our employees. So I think it gives us great insight into how we think we're doing as a district. So again, is there consensus in our district that we want to do some things differently? This question asked, we are all working towards the same goal. 36% of our district personnel thought or thinks without question we are. 64% of them believe that we are leaning towards not at all. With regards to our school staff, 40% thought that we were all working towards the same goal and moving in the same direction. 60% thought that we were leaning towards not at all. So if you look at that question alone, you would probably think that the most of us in our school district believes that there is room or a need for some changes. The next question that I pulled out from the survey was, on the resistance to change scale, people in my department gravitate to, and I don't know what happened with the responses here. There were only 5 choices, but somehow we have some responses that exceeded the 5 choices that were there, so I just chose to not acknowledge those and include them in my calculation, so it's not going to add up to 100. So if you were checking my math, that's why it's not adding up. But according to folks who work in our district level, 45% are open to change, 34% are leaning towards the way it's always been done. When we look at our school staff, 44% said that they were open to change, while 56% were leaning towards the way it's always been done. Another question that I pulled out from this survey to help address that question is, we are providing a safe, healthy, and effective learning environment for our students. 55% of our district employees believe that we are without question. 22% are leaning towards not at all. Our school staff believes, 60% of them believe that without question we are providing a safe, healthy, and an effective learning environment for students, while 40% are leaning towards not at all. And then the last question I believe that I pulled out to help us answer this question is, we are doing a great job providing a whole child education. 50% of our district staff believe that we are, while 27% are leaning towards not at all. When we look at our school staff, 57% believe that we are doing a great job, while 43% are leaning towards not at all. And so when you think about the cumulative results from these questions that I pulled out of that survey, sometimes it leads you to believe that as a district, the majority of us think we're ready for change and need change, while sometimes it appears that we think overall, most of us think that things are fine as is. So I want to share some other data that will probably help us answer this question a little better. So these are our 5-year graduation rates, starting from 2017 to 2021. And I'm not going to read everything up here, but generally speaking, on average, we as a district, we graduate consistently about 80% of the students who are eligible for graduation every single year, give or take 1 or 2 percentage points when you look at those averages. So when you think about 80%, that sounds good, right? Okay, there are people here, so you're supposed to respond, at least nod your head. Does that sound good? Okay. When you quantify the 20% of students who consistently do not graduate from our district, it equals out to be about 320 kids. On average, we have about 1,600 kids every single year who graduate from all of our high schools. 20% of that is about 320 kids. So when you think about the fact that 320 kids every single year drop out or do not graduate from our school system, that should pull at your heart some. 320 kids every single year who are not graduating. Here we have our math results for the last 5 years from our state assessment, the ACT expired, which I will admit is probably not the best assessment that we should be using, and I'm thankful that we have 1 more year left with the ACT expired before we transition to a new assessment. But with that said, take a look at our math results over the last 5 years. Pay close attention to how we were performing prior to the pandemic, that was 2019, compared to how our students just performed on the 2022 assessment. We have 1 grade level, grade 10, that is performing at or near where we were prior to the pandemic. So we have lots of work that we need to do. Science, same thing. We have 1 grade level, grade 8, who is performing at or near where students were performing prior to the pandemic. And I also put our state averages there so you can kind of compare how we're performing as a district to all districts across the state. Now, one thing you probably should notice that as a state, we're not doing all that well. So at the very least, our students should be at least performing at the state average. Here is English, a little better. We've got grades 8, 9, and 10 who are performing at or close to where students were performing prior to the pandemic. So regardless of where you were with your answer to this question earlier, when we take a quick review of our data over the last 5 years, you should be leaning towards at this point that there is room for change. There are some things that we need to do differently as a district. So we know that we had this little thing called the pandemic. And I'm using the word or the phrase little thing, but it wasn't a little thing. The pandemic has impacted every fiber of the way that we live as human beings, and the same is true for the impact that it has had on public education and education in general. So a couple of things that I'm sure you already know, but I want to take just a few seconds to really frame how detrimental the impact has been to the students that we serve in our district. On average, students are 5 months behind in mathematics and 4 months behind in reading as a result of the pandemic. Pre-existing opportunity and achievement gaps have widened, disproportionately worsening students from historically disadvantaged groups. Students in majority Black schools ended 2021 with 6 months of unfinished learning, 7 months for low-income students. High schoolers have become more likely to drop out of school. High school seniors, especially those from low-income families, are less likely to go on to post-secondary education. 35% of parents report that they're concerned about their child's mental health. The ripple effect of all of those things above may undermine students' chances of attending college and securing a living wage employment as adults. And then the last one, which I don't think we have fully realized as citizens of our great nation, the learning loss impact to the U.S. economy could amount to $128 billion to $188 billion every year as this cohort of students begins to enter their workforce. And if we're honest with ourselves, prior to the pandemic, we weren't doing all that well anyway. And all the pandemic has done is made things significantly worse, especially for students in disadvantaged groups. So if we say we're here for kids, if we say that we're in this business because we want to make a difference in the lives of children, we must be willing to reimagine, to rethink, to reevaluate, to take a different look at how we do things overall as a system. Here are some ideas that will help us serve students more effectively after the pandemic and in the years to come. So I want to share a few tips with you of some ideas that I just conjured up in terms of how we can reimagine LRSD and make our school district better. Now, this list isn't exhaustive. It's not meant to be exhaustive. It's just lists to throw out a few ideas that will help us all begin to think about how we can do things differently in our district. So, reimagining LRSD, number one. Relationship building with students and families. So who's ever operating the teleprompter in the back, this is the part where you slide up so that I can keep seeing my notes. Thank you. So number one, reimagining our relationships that we have with students and families. Now this is not, oh, that light. This is not anything new. This is not anything revolutionary. It's not a new idea. But I guarantee you that if we do this well as a system, it will totally revolutionize our district for good. Forging relationships with students and their families takes time. When COVID hit, educators went into high speed building relationships online and ensuring families were included in the learning process. This same vigor should continue when kids fully return to our classrooms. Let families know that they are equal partners with us in the education of their child and that you are walking alongside them. Using platforms incorporated during COVID and taking time to make personal connections with students and their family and keep those lines of communication open. Make it routine to communicate the good things about your students and your families. Nothing beats a positive phone call, but it will be unrealistic to think or expect educators to make phone calls to parents on a consistent basis. However, we now have all different types of technology tools that we can use to communicate with parents quickly and easily. Make sure that you use them. Also, we need to work very hard at creating a welcoming environment in our school or in our office settings. In other words, we should be great at providing customer service to all that we serve. Respect students. Hold them accountable, but do it respectfully and with tact. You hear older people say you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Sometimes we may need to get our students together in ways that we know how to get them together, but we still can get them together, and it can be done respectfully and without being disrespectful. And the last point, which is probably the most important point on this topic. As adults, we must work on, address, and acknowledge our own social and emotional issues and shortcomings that we have. Students should not be able to make you go there every time they go there. We are to model what we expect of our students, running away from that blue light. We are to model what we expect from our students, and we must be able to control our own selves if we expect students to be able to control and manage their own behavior. We must also recognize, identify, and use the gifts, the talents, and the interests of your students. Regardless of how bad you think they are, they all have these things, even those who give you the most trouble. They will continue to give you trouble until you find ways to connect with them. Point number two. Oh, I had a survey question here that kind of went with that question, but I'm going to skip it. Moving on to reimagining LRSD number two. Student choice in learning. Differentiation and student engagement are vital to student learning outcomes in the virtual space and in person. As a principal for 10 years and a district administrator for the last 9 years, I have seen teachers create lessons that can be modified for students at various content mastery levels that give students choice in learning. Unfortunately, those lessons were the special lessons that were usually done after the traditional unit. Let's make student choice and discovery learning the norm moving forward. This could, I don't know who you are, but you have been in my amen corner ever since I stepped on the stage, so I appreciate that. So this could look like students moving ahead or getting direct teacher time based on their experience and understanding of the material. During virtual instruction or online learning, it allowed students to spend a lot more time incorporating their interests into the lesson. Let's keep that same mindset going during in-person learning. Going back to point number one, if you knew your students' gifts, their talents, and their interests, you could use this same information to provide your students choice and differentiation in learning. Consider giving your students an interest survey so that you know who they are and use that information to better connect with them. Number three, along the same lines, giving student voice in the classroom. Generation Z, and I use the term Generation TikTok, that's not a real thing, I don't think, but I think it's a way to kind of describe this generation of kids that we serve. But Generation Z and Generation TikTok generally are not passive learners. This generation of kids, they've grown up solely in the digital era. They are not going to just sit still and listen to you talk all day and tell them what to do. And let me say that one more time. They are not going to sit there and listen to you talk and tell them what to do all day long. It's not. It's just not going to work. Give them a voice, or they will take over your classroom. They will take over your classroom either by doing absolutely nothing, or they will wreak havoc. When I say give them voice, I mean give them a voice in their own learning. It means recognizing that young people have a perspective on the world that adults can't share, and that their perspective should be welcomed alongside the wisdom that adult perspectives bring. When students have a voice in their learning, they are more likely to be engaged because learning is relevant. Especially in today's educational setting, educators must strive to ensure that students' voices are not lost. Choice boards, flex blocks, passion projects, genius hours, and maker spaces were staples during virtual learning. Let's ensure that it continues to be a staple for in-person learning as well. Number four, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of applause on this, time. Well, I thought that I would get a lot of applause on that. If there is something that we all need more of, it is time. Teachers do not need more technology. They don't need more programs. They don't need more emails and edicts. They need more time. Now, before you start applauding, let me break this down a little more because I may be going in a different direction than what you are thinking. Teachers in our country, they spend far more time engaged in active instruction than teachers in other high-performing countries. Based on self-reported data, teachers in the United States, they spend 27 hours a week teaching out of 45 hours a week. Compare this with teachers in Singapore who teach for only 17 hours per week, or teachers in Finland who teach for a total of 21 hours per week. Schools in these countries prioritize time for planning, collaboration, and recognizing that developing and executing lessons take time and preparation. According to a recent analysis of more than 140 school districts, the average length of a U.S. teacher's workday is 7.5 hours. How you doing, Mr. Smith? In another analysis of more than 120 school districts, the most common length of time allotted for planning, it's no surprise, was 45 minutes per day. In this short time, teachers must grade student work, plan for future lessons, engage with families, and complete necessary paperwork. As a result, teachers have very little time to plan or to collaborate with their peers. So, how can we find more time for teacher planning? The good thing is that there are models all over the country that we can look to. For the sake of time, I'll just share one that is the most common and one that has been consistently shown to positively impact student outcomes. There are a plethora of schools who have added more than 260 hours of instructional time to the school year and built in common planning time by extending the school day and strategically aligning grade team schedules. The schedule allows more targeted intervention and enrichment opportunities for all students. This extended time is for teacher planning, not more time for student instruction per se. The emphasis here is not more time for students to receive the same kinds of learning experiences that they are accustomed to receiving. The extra time here is for teachers to develop, improve, and plan so that the time they have for instruction will be spent more effectively. Reimagining LRSD number 5, and I'm almost done. Risk-taking. Educators and students show grit and drive to learn and try new technology. Continue this mindset and culture when teachers and students return to in-person learning. Maintain an environment in which attempts are celebrated and not just correct answers. This process will foster a culture of discovery learning. And to our leaders, we must empower and not restrict risk-taking and creativity in the classrooms of our teachers. Number 6. That was a question that was dealing with risk-taking, but I'm going to skip it for the sake of time. We'll come back to it later. And I know this one may seem kind of out of place, but learning management systems. Before the pandemic, many teachers had their way to disseminate learning and to gather student work. Virtual learning taught us quickly that being efficient and consistent when students were not in front of us was essential. However, this efficiency didn't end when we returned to school. Learning management systems will continue to help teachers deliver lessons, share reading materials, and grade assignments. In addition, these platforms can streamline much of the work for teachers by centralizing several features on one platform, including tools needed to run a virtual, hybrid, or in-person classroom, track student progress, and probably the most beneficial thing that I've seen with learning management systems during the pandemic was the connection with parents. Good or bad, parents had a direct purview into what was happening in that virtual space. And so they saw us sometimes in our cars teaching virtual lessons. They saw us doing all types of things while we were providing virtual instruction to kids. But it was a great tool to be able to engage parents more into the educational learning process. So make sure that we use make sure that learning management systems are the norm and not just for virtual instruction. And then the last one. I'm getting ready to introduce our speaker for today. The last Reimagine topic is literacy. Why is literacy so vitally important? I think we all know the answer to this question. Literacy lifts individuals out of poverty. And writing skills is a tremendous, I'm sorry, can you go back? Thank you. Go back a little more. Thank you. Literacy lifts individuals out of poverty. Lacking basic reading and writing skills is a tremendous disadvantage. Literacy not only enriches an individual's life, but it creates opportunities for people to develop skills that will help them provide for themselves and for their families. Students that can't read effectively, which means that they can't decode and make meaning of words, they fail to grasp important concepts. They score poorly on tests and ultimately fail to meet educational milestones. Literacy skills allow students to seek out information, explore subjects in depth, and gain a deeper understanding of the world around them. Literacy improves health. There is growing research now that shows a positive correlation between adult literacy and lower infant mortality. Literacy and numeracy are prerequisites for a broader education. It connects all of the other content areas that we teach our students each and every day. It serves as a necessary ingredient for students to be able to learn and grasp everything. Literacy improves the economy and creates jobs. Literacy builds self-esteem and overall quality of life. Illiterate students in LRSD won't have much of a fighting chance at a quality of life if we don't reimagine how we address these issues in our district. Although we have almost reached 2019 pre-pandemic performance outcomes in reading in several grade levels, as you see indicated by circles on this chart, we remain in a literacy crisis and a literacy pandemic in our district. And when you look at the state averages, we can also say that the entire state of Arkansas is experiencing a literacy crisis. We can offer all types of reasons as to why the data looks like it looks, but the numbers are what they are. This issue won't be solved in our district just by teachers alone. It won't be solved just by the work that our principals and school leaders do alone. It is everyone's responsibility in our district to contribute something throughout this year, to contribute to the literacy crisis that we have in our district. And throughout this year, we'll be sharing ways in which everybody from custodians, from cafeteria workers, to bus drivers, to office workers, to people in payroll, there's something that we all can do collectively to help address the literacy crisis that we have in our district. And so you will probably notice that this is the one area where I did not provide any tips or ideas for us to address the literacy crisis that we have in our district. And that's because we have someone here who's going to share lots of tips with us. And so at this moment, I would like to introduce to you, not only is he a personal friend of mine, he is a literacy expert and has a gift of presenting in a way that is very engaging to his audience. And so I have his bio, and I'm not going to read every last bit of it, but I'll share just a few things as soon as you scroll up. Thank you. Donyal Dickey is a nationally recognized authority on curriculum instruction and organizational development and administration of schools. Unparalleled levels of student achievement and school improvement distinguish Dr. Dickey's 17-year career as an educational leader. He is a native of Texas City, Texas, and is a graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, Loyola University in Maryland, and the George Washington University in DC, where he earned a doctorate in educational leadership and policy and wrote a groundbreaking dissertation on the resilience in African American males. He began his career as a third-grade teacher in the Baltimore City schools before becoming a high school English and literature and SAT prep teacher and an assistant principal in the Baltimore County public school system. After 4 years as an assistant principal, remember I said I wasn't going to read all of this, but it looks like I am. He served as principal in Baltimore City public school system before his 6-year tenure as a principal in the Howard County public school system. Unparalleled levels of student achievement and school improvement characterized his career as a site-based instructional leader, including having led the lowest performing middle school in Howard County to the most significant gains on the Maryland School Assessment, outgaining more than 3,000 schools. Through strategic planning, his knowledge of curriculum and instruction, and attention to the professional development delivery model, Dr. Dickey replicated significant gains on a larger scale as regional superintendent in the School District of Philadelphia, where he managed a diverse network of 33 schools. In the role of regional superintendent, Dr. Dickey led the cohort of elementary, K-8, and neighborhood high schools to the most significant gains in English, reading, and mathematics on the Pennsylvania State Assessment in the city of Philadelphia. Dr. Dickey also served as the chief academic officer of the School District of Philadelphia, where he was responsible for the academic programming for 220 schools and 160,000 students. He also managed 9 major district-wide departments, including curriculum and instruction, assessment, special ed, multilingual curriculum, blah, 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 blah. Keep going. Later on, Dr. Dickey served students and families in Atlanta as the chief schools officer and the chief academic officer of the Atlanta Public Schools, where he managed a team of 7 associate and assistant superintendents, as well as the offices of all those things that I'm not getting ready to read. Keep scrolling. All while improving student and organizational outcomes as a pre-K to 12 leader, Dr. Dickey has been building a successful publishing and professional development firm called Educational Epiphany. As a chief executive officer and lead consultant, Dr. Dickey has authored and published 33 books, including 22 teacher resource books on the internationally benchmarked Common Core standards for English reading, social studies, science, the technical subjects, mathematics, and 11 teacher resource books on the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. His ideas for school improvement and organizational effectiveness are used to improve the lives of schooling experience for children all across the nation. As a CEO and the lead consultant for Educational Epiphany, Dr. Dickey and his national consulting team is currently partnering with urban, suburban, and rural districts as a provider of standards-based instructional materials for the core content areas. Anything else that you can think of, he has done. So at this point, I am proud to welcome him back to Little Rock, and most specifically to the Little Rock School District, Dr. Donyal Dickey.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Thank you, Dr. Wright. I appreciate it.
We weren't supposed to see that. I guess they are switching out your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Good morning, everybody. How are you today? Good. Dr. Wright, I always ask people not to read that entire bio. It sounds like an obituary, you know. So it's good to be back here in Little Rock. I have a history of working with a number of schools in your district some time ago in an effort to help them to do better academically. And I want to say hello to one of them, Mableville Middle School. I worked with them recently, and they made some significant gains. So I think it's only appropriate that I warn you about something as it comes to my presentation style before I jump in. My presentation style, I start out Methodist, but I end up Pentecostal. Are y'all ready? Y'all ready? Okay. All right. I also have to tell you that, Dr. Wright, you said something, and I want to dovetail on it. You said literacy can change a child's life, and that's true. So I grew up in the housing projects when my parents got divorced, and we ended up in significant abject poverty. And the things that I saw as a little person, they still have an impact on me as an adult. By the time I was 12, my mother was addicted to drugs. And y'all know what the drug was in the 80s. So I'd be on the school bus headed to school, and I'd see my mother trying to get her next fix. And everybody on that bus knew that was my mother. But when I got to school, I had teachers who loved me. They made a difference in my life. And now I'm standing in front of you, Dr. Dickey. I remember saying to my mother before, I'm gonna come to this stuff on the screen, I promise you. I remember saying to my mother, I can't keep moving, I can't keep changing schools, I gotta go. Can I go live with your mother? She said, well, if you can convince her, you can go. So I walked the 10 blocks to my grandmother's home, and she said, you can stay, but you know, I got a couple of your uncles here, I don't have a bedroom for you, you're gonna have to sleep in the living room. My grandmother had a shotgun house, y'all know what that is? Yeah. You can see the front door from the back door. So she said, you can stay here, but you sleep in the living room, and I'm gonna give you a sheet, and I'm gonna give you a pillow. And y'all, through the floor, I could see the ground underneath the house. That's why I slept for 5 years before I left on a full scholarship to the University of Texas at Austin. So Dr. Wright, you're right. Literacy can change a child's trajectory. So I've written 47 books, 120 children's books, and I'm the international author of Scholastic's reading program. Yeah. So I never thought it was imaginable. But y'all, guess what? I was one of those kids for whom no one came. Y'all know that kid. Nobody comes for back to school night. Okay, when I finished 11th grade, you know, y'all do the National Junior Honor Society induction. And nobody from my family came. But guess what y'all did? Y'all, I got dressed in the best that I could find, and I walked to that ceremony, and I got my little award. And when I finished high school, y'all, no one came. I was at the top of my class. They'd have the decency to come. When I finished University of Texas and Loyola University and my doctorate from George Washington, no one came. What point am I trying to make? I don't need a pity party. I turned out just fine, y'all. I'm wearing Gucci. I started from the bottom, now I'm here. Worked out just fine. But here's the point I'm trying to make, Little Rock. Here's the point I'm trying to make. If we don't serve them, no one will. Okay. Y'all follow me on Twitter and say something nice about me. It's Danielle D. I see you, Ryan Burgess from the state. Okay, I see you. All right. Okay. All right. Now, look, when I ask this question, Little Rock, when I ask this question to folks around the country, they say to me, if only parents were more involved. Y'all, sometimes they're not going to come. And it's not that they don't want to come. They maybe had a bad experience themselves when they were in school. Or maybe they're just trying to keep their head above water. right? You don't know what they're up against. All right, somebody said help in this house. I'm trying. I feel my help coming. It's coming. All right. So, and some people say, well, if we had better resources, that's right. How do we make brick without straw? Y'all, that's the word. Y'all didn't go to Sunday school. Okay. But the number one issue, you're right, Dr. Ray, pre-pandemic, 60% of all children in this country, no matter what grade they were in, they weren't reading at the grade level expectation. That's national data, the National Center for Ed Statistics. And if children were of minority descent in this country pre-pandemic, 75% of them were not reading at the grade level expectation. And if they were grappling with a disability in advance of COVID-19, that number was 95% of them were not reading at the grade level expectation. So you're right, it is at pandemic levels, but we can fix it. I'm gonna show you how to fix it. Every school district I go to, y'all, I'm working in 47 states and a couple of countries. Everywhere I go, I show them what's on the screen, and children do better. Y'all ready? Okay, here we go. All right. Y'all seen this RTI pyramid before, yes? And this RTI pyramid, Little Rock, has some dangerous assumptions inside of it. What's the first assumption? That 80% of the kids are in the green on day one. This is why I have a problem with people telling you to teach the program with fidelity, page to page to page. All right, some of you didn't clap. You hate the sunshine and the rain. Okay. So sometimes you have to season the curriculum in a way based upon what you know about the children who are in front of you. And when you're required to be on the same page at the same time and you don't have the same children, somebody's making you speed up to a red light. Okay. Somebody get my car ready. Get my car ready, Dr. Wright. Okay. Now that yellow in the RTI pyramid says that that's about 10 to 12% of your population, they're in need of some level of support. If you're not careful, they'll slide into the red, right? And that red at the top, it says, these are the kids. You ask to find the key details in the paragraph. You give them a highlighter, they highlight the entire paragraph. These kids in the red, you ask them to solve a two-step algebraic equation, and they can't multiply and divide. And so when 20% of your population, that yellow and the red together, is in need of some level of support, then you have enough adults to support the children who need help, because only 20% or 1 in 5 need some level of help. But what if your RTI pyramid looks like that? You got a tier 1 issue. You got a tier 1 instructional issue when your RTI pyramid is upside down. You say, well, wait a minute. I teach at 12 Oaks. And 12, I teach on the golf course. Well, if you look at your student populations, your student groups, some of your student groups are upside down, even if your whole building is not upside down. And when your RTI pyramid is upside down, most of your kids are in need of some level of support. The yellow, that's your proficient kids, and they can slide into the red. And the green at the bottom, that's your highly able and gifted kids, and they're bored to tears. Because everybody's worried about the kid who's on the bubble. But guess what? I don't ever, to help school districts get better with literacy, I've never focused on test prep, because test prep is the enemy of public education. So who's the friend of public education? It's about giving kids access. If you give kids access to high quality instruction, the assessment will take care of itself. Okay, I'll move on. So if your RTI pyramid is upside down, Little Rock, you can't take a pull-out approach. Yes, kids need pull-outs. I'm not saying they don't need pull-outs. I'm saying, but your whole district instructional programming has to be built upon what? Wherever kids are, push in a small number of things we all believe in around literacy. Okay, y'all don't believe me, I'll show you. Watch this. I call these the international shifts for teaching and learning in my research, because wherever I see them, Dr. Wright, I see children doing well academically. So here it is, number 1. Now, let's talk ELA for 1 second. In the ELA block, children need balanced exposure to both informational and literary texts. And unfortunately, at the elementary level, and I'm not indicting elementary, unfortunately, in this country, at the elementary level, most of the texts that kids see are stories, equals literary. And if you're not careful, when kids are reading an informational text, they'll call it a story. And how you approach a story is not how you approach an informational text. Now, the informational text that we use to teach kids things like inferencing and asking and answering questions and main topic and main idea and central idea, those texts need to look 6 ways. They need to be historical. In the ELA block, children should be reading historical text to learn main idea. In the ELA block, children should be reading scientific text to learn main idea. This is why you can't teach main idea in one day and be done with it. It's got to be done with a multitude or variety of informational texts. That's why there's no such thing as a daily objective, because your lesson is not over just because the day is over. Okay. That's why I have an issue with minutes, a number of minutes next to each section of your lesson plan. It doesn't make any sense, because you don't know what's going to happen till you stand in front of kids. Okay, all right. Y'all tired of me already. I'm tired of you too. Okay. Okay, as a former teacher, here's what my administrators would have me do, Dr. Wright. They would have me turn in my lesson plans. Everybody, we turn our lesson plans a week in advance for the upcoming week. Guess what, y'all? I turned them in, but it wasn't what I was doing. Because I don't know until I stand in front. Okay, all right, let me move on. So the informational texts that we use to teach whatever it is we're teaching, they should be historical, scientific, and technical, which means like how a bill becomes a law. They should cross eras, topics, and perspectives. Is that happening in Little Rock to your level of satisfaction? Then you can't expect kids to do well on an end of grade and end of course assessment. Now on the literary side, the text should be looked 5 ways. They should be written by a variety of authors, on a variety of genres, plays, poems, and stories. So when you're teaching things like characterization and plot and characterization, you know, how the author reveals the personality traits of the characters, those texts have to look a certain way. Here they are. Authors, genres, traditions, classical, Huckleberry Finn, traditional, Beowulf, passed down through a tradition, the author's typically unknown, and mythological gods and demigods. I'm moving away from ELA. Y'all, let me lay the foundation. Okay, there are 13 eras of literatures, and there's a variety of themes of literature, you know, like perseverance pays off, tortoise in the hare, right? Cinderella, good always wins. Are children being exposed to these strategically or in pockets? And if you're trying to get equity, you got to deal with this. Which means you shouldn't be on teacherspayteachers.com looking for this stuff. It should be handed to you. Okay, y'all quiet. Y'all must be Methodists in here. Okay. Okay. Let me move on. Now, let me talk about all content areas. Let me talk about all content areas. So you don't think I'm English only. I'm all content areas. Now, if you want children to do well academically, Little Rock, and by the way, this suit was slim fit before they put this microphone on me. Now it's just tight. Lord have mercy. I can't even button it, y'all. It's a big old battery pack. Okay. So, complex text. As the school year progresses, children need access to increasingly complex text. So as the school year progresses, the text that we use to teach whatever it is we're teaching, no matter what content we're teaching, applied academics on the screen refers to electives courses. So, but if 60% of the kids in the aggregate read below the grade level expectation, how can you expose kids to increasingly complex text as the school year progresses? Seems like an oxymoron, but it's not. We got to be the bridge to the text. Because when children don't get access to grade level text, they don't get access to grade level background knowledge. So, okay, kids read on 2 levels, Little Rock. Independent, instructional. Independent is how children read without any support from us. But instructional is how they should be reading based upon what grade they're in. And oftentimes there's a gap between the two. How do you close the gap between the two? Here's what we should do as teachers in this district. We should say to kids, yeah, we're going to read that text, but before we read it, you're going to highlight every word you don't know how to say. Wait a minute, I don't have time for that. I got to get to the end of the curriculum. America is getting to the end of its collective curriculum, and the worst is already happening. So we have to say to kids, highlight every word you don't know how to say. Y'all, what is that? That's decoding. And what's decoding? It's a pre-K-12 issue. What is decoding? Children see letters and they know what sounds to make. And if your brain is struggling with what sounds to make, your brain is not struggling with comprehension. And so whose responsibility is it for 180 days, for the number of years that kids are under our instructional care? It's everybody's responsibility in this room, no matter what content area you teach, to say to kids, highlight every word you might have difficulty saying. And you're not going to get on my nerves. We're going to talk about every one of those words. Because if you help the one who has an issue with that word, you're helping the 21 who might not tell you. Okay. Now, what's the next step in closing the gap between their independent instructional reading level? We got to say to kids, do me a favor. I want you to highlight every word you don't know what it means. Because reading is not just calling out words. Reading is not just decoding. Have you ever stood over a kid, you watched them read something? And then you ask them questions about what they read in an expressionless way, and they couldn't answer any of them. You know why? Because they didn't create meaning of what they read. All they did was decode it. And reading is decoding plus creating meaning on a simultaneous parallel pathway. And so when we say to kids, highlight every word you don't know how to say, and every word that you don't know what it means, we close the gap between their independent and their instructional reading level one moment at a time. They clapped for me harder yesterday in South Carolina. Okay. But can we do that, y'all? Can we do that for kids? Do we have permission to do that for kids? So principals, if you're listening, let people do that for kids. That's not anti-principal, that's pro-student. Okay, all right. Okay, now, did you know that 95% of the questions that are used to judge our effectiveness as public educators requires children to go back to the text to support their response? So then why do we have 100 ways for requiring kids to support their response from the text, and the psychometricians who write the assessments have one? I'm going to let you in on the one. What's the one? When kids respond to a text-based question, you know what we should require them to do from pre-K? Pinpoint the exact location of the information in the text that they use to support their response to our question. Okay, you don't believe me. Somebody hand me a book or a spiral or something I can turn the pages in. Okay, thank you, sir. I was with a group of kids. I got 120 children's books. They're called Dr. Dickey's Decodables. And I was reading one of the books called Billy's Day. And I had pre-K 3 kids in the room with me. Y'all know pre-K 3 kids, they've only been alive 36 months. So you got about 10 minutes to teach them or they're gonna start picking boogers, okay? That time was ticking, I had to hurry, y'all. So I said, hey, y'all, who's on the cover of this book? I said, the title of this book is Billy's Day. I said, who do you think is on the cover of this book? They said, Billy. So then we opened the book, and Billy was getting out of bed, and on the next page, Billy was having breakfast with his parents and his sister, and on the next day, Billy was, there's not some serious notes in here that the camera is catching. Okay, all right. And on the next day, on the next page, Billy was in class with his multicultural friends. There was a little carrot top kid, a little Asian kid, a little African American kid, a Latinx kid in the room. Because kids need to see that in the books that they use to learn how to read. And that's not critical race theory, that's diversity. Okay, all right. So, and then on the next page, Billy was playing with his friends, and then I noticed that there was a nonverbal kid in the class, because we got to make sure our nonverbal kids feel like they're, being a part of the teaching and learning as well. So I said, I noticed a nonverbal kid, and I said, okay, do y'all see anything in the classroom, in Billy's classroom, that you have in your classroom? And they were like, blocks. I said, yeah, blocks. And this one said, cars. But I said to the nonverbal kid, I said, I see a paintbrush over here in Billy's classroom. Is there a paintbrush in your classroom? Can you go get it for me and bring it to me? And boy, you should have seen his face. He was like this. Man, he went and grabbed that paintbrush and brought it back to me and handed it to me, and the other kids clapped for him almost spontaneously. Okay, inclusion, y'all, it matters. Okay, all right. So then, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. On the next page, Billy's mom was picking him up from school. And then the next page, Billy's friend was handing him a balloon at the park. So I said to the kids, who is that girl on page 6 handing Billy the balloon? And the kids almost in unison said, that's his sister. And one kid said, no, it's not. And you know what that 3-year-old did? He went back to page 2. You know what he said? He said, that girl on page 2 has on a yellow shirt, but that girl on page 6 has on a pink shirt. That's not Billy's sister. So if 3 years old can do it, what about 12? But is it in our instructional fabric? Because you don't need a program. You don't need another program in LRSD. You got a program for the program for the program. No new friends. Don't you buy another program. I'm sorry, that ain't my place. I'm sorry. Did I just get fired? Okay. The currency of school improvement, Hodo, it's on the screen right now. And so that kid said to me, can I say something else? I said, sure, son, what do you want to say? He said, that girl on page 6, she got 2 Afro puffs. But he said, that girl on page 2, she got 1 Afro puff in the top of her head. What was he doing, y'all? He was pinpointing the exact location of the information he was using to support his response to my question. And if a 3-year-old can do it, we got to require all kids to do it. Okay. All right. So if you're in this room and you're 40 and under, would you raise your hand for me, please? Or if you're out there in LRSD, raise your hand if you're 40 and under. Look at them, y'all. They smell like milk. Look at them. Look. Smell like a can of milk. Look at you. Put your hands down with your young, broke self. Look, put it down. Put your hand down. It's not your moment to shine. Put your hand down. Okay, now, if you're above 40, would you raise your hand? Look at us. Look at us. We're so sophisticated. We got savings accounts, and we know what we want out of life. Good. Let me explain something about those 2 groups of people. 40 and above, we went through struggle when it was time to write a paper, when it was time to express ourselves through writing in a way that you young people may not have. Okay, let me explain it. So when we had to write a paper back in the day, we had to start at this place called the library. Yeah. Young people, a library is a brick building in your neighborhood. Yeah. I know y'all don't know yet. And the teacher said to you, I want you to write a paper, but I want other people's thought on the topic. I don't want your thoughts. And we had to go up to this machine called a microfiche machine. And the microfiche machine, y'all, it had a dial on it. And you turn the dial and the articles would slide in front of you like, shoo, shoo, shoo. And if the person who scanned the article in had an attitude and scanned it in sideways, you had to lean to see it. And you had to collect information, Jesse, on these, from the microfiche machine articles onto index cards. And if you were a sophisticated researcher, your index cards were a different color for each source. And you had a rubber band for your index cards. 40 and under, I said, that's why you don't understand struggle. Yeah, And then from the index cards, you wrote your first outline, And your outline had Roman numerals on it. And you knew what those Roman numerals meant. And now all y'all know is MCM, yeah. That's the designer, y'all, that's the designer. And then from the outline, you wrote your first draft. And when you got your first draft back, it had the blood of 1,000 battles on it. Because somebody read it and marked up every line of it, and they didn't care about your fragile feelings. And now, Little Rock, children have difficulty writing a sentence without a sentence starter. Do you know why that is? I believe as public educators, we somewhat contributed to it because we got away from one of the basics. And that is what? If kids are going to write about something, they got to read about it from more than one source first. Little Rock, is this a part of your fabric? It's not a program. That's why I don't call it a program. I call it the integrated approach to student achievement. Why? Because if you integrate these literacy practices into every seat that kids are in, you don't need a pull out because it's being pushed in. Okay, last one on this screen. Conceptual understanding of academic language. Children sit in our classrooms every day. We use words that they don't know and they won't tell us. Guess what, y'all? Writing the state standard on the board has never helped children. So what helps children? If you're going to teach them something, I think a one-sentence statement that has a bunch of academic language in it that should be consistent on your board for a number of days, those words are the most important words that you're going to need to teach kids if you're trying to get them to proficiency on something. Let me give you an example. Let's go ELA. We're going to identify key details so we can determine central idea. Somebody's got to make sure every kid in that room understands what identify means. Somebody in that room has to make sure every kid in that room understands what key details are. Somebody in that room has to make sure that every kid understands what determine means. and central idea. Okay, let's go to science. We're going to be distinguished between plant and animal cells in order to classify organisms. Identify plant cell, animal cell, right? Organisms, classify. I'm going to teach a math class where we're going to complete a function table. Well, what's the function table? We're going to complete a function table so that we can do what? Graph and describe the relationship between the dependent and independent variable. But then what does it mean to graph something? What's it independent variable? What's the dependent variable? Y'all went in a hurry when we shouldn't even be doing any math problems that involve dependent and independent variables until they understand what one is. And if I call on one kid in the classroom to ask them what a variable is, I only know what one kid is thinking. And so my students, when I taught in the housing projects of Baltimore City, and I loved every moment of it, when I was being observed by the principal, they would like band together almost nonverbally and say, we're going to read that objective off the board, we're going to do it really well. And I would point to it and they would read it out loud. They had no idea what those words meant. And I didn't take the time I needed to because I was just trying to get that check on my evaluation that I pointed to the objective. So my question to you is, Little Rock, is this in your fabric yet? And if not, I don't want you to think that hope is a strategy. It's not a strategy. What's the strategy? To get on the same page. Okay, all right. So let me show you this way. What's the summary? Get something in your head. According to the psychometrician, we should be telling kids from as early as grade 3 that it's a brief statement that contains the essential ideas of a longer passage, period. Well, you hate that definition? Well, then you hate kids, because that's the definition. Are y'all with me? That's the definition that the test writers think we've been telling them since 3rd grade. But have we? So when kids go from one grade to the next, or even one classroom to the next in the same grade, and there's a different expectation for what it means to summarize, our kids aren't unintelligent, they're confused. Okay, you don't believe me, watch this. What's point of view? Every 3rd grader in Little Rock should say this to you when you ask them what's point of view. Well, it depends upon what kind of text you're reading. Because if you're reading informational text, point of view refers to opinion. But if you're reading a play, a poem, or a story, point of view refers to the position of the narrator. 1st person, 2nd person, 3rd person limited, and 3rd person omniscient. Is this how every 3rd grader is going to answer this question? If not, this is not a child issue, this is an adult issue. And I'm not indicting you. I'm saying this is an opportunity for growth. So you said you wanted to do something different. Okay. Let's do one more for kicks and giggles. We've been telling kids for a long time that an inference is an educated guess, and it's not true. The psychometrician thinks you've been telling kids since 3rd grade that it's a logical assumption that's based upon information from the text plus one's prior knowledge and their experience. It's not an educated guess. Y'all do me a favor. Make a logical assumption about your presenter. Oh, I heard you, ma'am. You said I'm handsome. No, that's a fact. You can see that. That's what I get for showing off. I dropped. So it's logical. What does logical mean, Little Rock? It makes what? What's an assumption? You don't know, but you think it's true based upon what you read, plus your prior knowledge and your experience. Are we on the same page with academic language as a district pre-K-12? Y'all, let me hear you. One person said yes. So it's not an indictment, it's an opportunity for growth. Okay? So here's what I did. I developed the resources to get everybody on the same page. Educational Epiphany, we developed resources to make sure that when the science teacher says we're going to analyze dominant and recessive genes, the science teacher has the same definition for analyze as the ELA teacher who's analyzing the connection between the life and times of William Shakespeare and Romeo and Juliet. Are y'all with me? So with the same definition of analyze, when the social studies teacher is having children analyze primary and secondary sources, so that kids are not instructionally schizophrenic. And what do I mean by instructionally schizophrenic? They hear voices. The children do. They hear voices of whom? Teachers past, who cared about them but had not calibrated in service to them. Okay, all right, I'm done. How much time do I have, Dr. Wright? Okay, all right. Now, there are 4 things I would pray. I'm praying you do well academically. 4 things, and I'm going to be out of your way. I'll take my seat. I'll give you the benediction. Okay, here we go. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Practice number 1. I'm begging you, Little Rock. Think about this for the first month of the school year. And by the way, you know, it pains me greatly when people go to conferences and they come back and they say, hey, y'all, I learned something we're getting ready to do. Stop that other stuff you've been doing. We're getting ready to do this. That's destructive to a school district. So we got to be careful what we say we're going to do, because we end up doing 100 things and doing nothing well. Okay, so here's this. A good objective on the board and a really prominent location in the classroom that looks two ways, that has one part content and it has one part higher order thinking. And some people say it was an I can statement. That's fine. Or started with students will be able to. Doesn't matter. But it's a one-sentence statement that says, I'm going to teach you this so you can do that. And it can't change every day because you're doing too much work to get kids to the finality of that one-sentence statement. Okay. I see 3 types of objectives on boards across the country. Number 1, flawed. It's nothing but an activity. It says something like, today we're going to do worksheet number 7, malpractice. Or today we're going to read Romeo and Juliet, malpractice. Of course you're going to read, you're in school. Okay, objectives are supposed to put words in kids' heads. Because the kids who read below grade level, they have 2,500 words in their lexicon. But kids who read on grade level or above, they have 25,000 words in their lexicon. So how do we get kids to 25,000 or more, and they don't like to read for fun? Okay, I'll say it this way. You ever watch the evening news? And there's always a roving reporter in the neighborhood with a microphone. And that roving reporter always walks right past a person that could represent the community well through speech. And they give that microphone to the person that embarrasses the entire zip code. And the person they give the microphone to, what do those people typically not have? See, y'all said teeth. Little Rock, I was going to say words. They don't have words. So if our kids... Y'all are out of control. I'm not coming back. Okay. They typically don't have words. So we've been asked for many, many years to put the objective or put the standard on the board in hopes that that would put words in kids' heads. But that alone doesn't put it in their head if you don't say to them, now let's talk about every word that's in it. Okay. The second type of objective that I see across the country, I call it content-driven, which means it's good, but it doesn't ask kids to think. And what do kids hate to do, y'all? Think. Many of our kids just want you to tell them what they need to write on the paper. So a good objective says, I'm going to teach you this so you can do that. I call that performance-based. Let's look at a few examples. Let's start with ELA. Okay, students will be able to, SWBAT, IoT in order to. I'm not going to fight you about I can. That's not important. What's important is what comes after. So students will be able to use a jigsaw in order to determine the main idea of a text. You should be saying to me, Doc, that's flawed. Why? Because a jigsaw has nothing to do with determining the main idea. What's the prerequisite of determining the main idea? Being able to distinguish between a detail that is key and a detail that is not key to the development of the main idea of the text. Y'all see it? Do you see what students need to know? They need to know how to what? Identify key details. And what do they need to do with that? Determine the main idea. If they're K2, determine the main topic. If they're 612, determine the central idea according to the Arkansas standards. So your objective has to be connected to the standard, but to write that entire standard on the board, y'all, that's compliance. That is not commitment to children. Okay, let's go to social studies. Okay, class, we're going to be identifying the achievements of key historical figures. Oh, Lord. Well, I hid the presentation in my heart, so I can keep going. So if kids have to identify the achievements of key historical figures, that's good content for social studies, is it not? But it's missing what kids are going to do with it that's higher order in nature. What do you do with your ability to identify the achievements of people who were important historically? You use it to be able to analyze the impact of their life on life in the United States. So think about Susan B. Anthony, Dr. King, Cesar Chavez. What did they accomplish? And now what is the impact, the long-lasting impact on their life on life in the United States? A good objective is supposed to teach kids some content, not just get them to memorize a bunch of stuff, but use what they remember to think at a much higher level. Are y'all with me? But then somebody's got to say to kids, what does identify mean? What is an achievement? Tell me something you have achieved. What does it mean for a historical figure to be key? It means what? You can't get through a locked door unless you kick it down if you don't have the key. So why don't we have the freedom to have conversations with kids about academic language before we go too far in the lesson? I was working with a group of schools in a neighboring school district to you, Pulaski County School District. And I don't know why y'all laughing. And I'm not poking fun at them at all, but I was in a classroom because I went back every 4 weeks to see how they were doing academically. And I was in a classroom, and I said to the kids, what are y'all working on? They was like, well, our objective is over there. I said, but I see the word democracy all over the room, and I see it in your objective. I said, what's democracy? And I asked the one kid, he couldn't tell me. So I'm thinking, I asked that kid, that kid, the kid you should not ask. So then I went to another kid, and that kid couldn't tell me. Then I went to another, and then another, and then another, and they were at the end of this unit on democracy, and none of them could tell me what democracy was. So why did somebody just say to kids, DEMO, people, ACY, rule, democracy, the rule of the people? If you want kids to be literate, it's not about pulling them out to become more literate. It's about pushing it into wherever they are through the objective. Okay. All right. Y'all tired of me. Okay. Identify the achievements kids are fix to analyze the impact of their life in the United States. Let me go to science. Here it is. We're going to write a lab report. Oh, yeah, that's flawed. So how do you make it performance-based? Describe the phase of each water cycle. Describe each of the phases of the water cycle. But why? What's the higher order thinking that you could get kids to do with that? Describe how they're interconnected. Build something to show how the phases of the water cycle are interconnected. Do you see any words that have to be taught to kids so they have teeth later on? What's the first word they need to know, y'all? Y'all said teeth. I didn't say that. What's the first word that we need to make sure every kid knows? Say it. Describe. The next one. Phase. The next phrase. Water cycle. The next word. The next word. The next word. The next word. Why not do that first? Okay, I'll move on. I met this kid in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and they told me later on that she lived in abject poverty, but it didn't matter. So I walked into this kindergarten classroom, and I saw the objective that you see at the bottom of the screen on the board. And so I said to her, what are y'all doing, sweetheart? And she said, we're composing and decomposing composite figures. 6 years old. She didn't say, I'm doing my work. She talked to me in the academic language. So then I said to her, and I had just done PD in her building 4 weeks earlier. So I said, well, what does compose mean? And she said, compose means to make. The teacher gives us a number between 1 and 10. We're supposed to grab that number of Lego blocks and create a composite figure. So a teacher says 6. She grabs 6 blocks, clicks them together. She knew she was creating a composite figure. Then she looked at me like, you didn't know that, dummy? I said, you wouldn't have known it either had I not been here 4 weeks earlier. I said that in my head, y'all. Okay. So then I asked her, I said, what does decompose mean? Yeah, let me say this to you a little while. There are 30 prefixes, there are 30 root words, and there are 30 suffixes that if our kids knew them, they would create meaning at a much higher level than they currently do. I'm going to show them to you before I leave the stage sometime today. So I said to her, I said, what does decompose mean? And she said, well, the DE in front of decompose means away. My knees buckle. And she said, well, when the teacher tells us to decompose the composite figure, she wants us to pull the Lego blocks away from each other so we can do another number. And if 6 years old can do it, what about 12? What about 16? Is it in our fabric? Is it in our instructional fabric as an organization? Okay, I'll move on. So I believe that administrators, when we walk into classrooms to give teachers feedback, and by the way, if you're a champion, you can take feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. And if you're an administrator, you can't lead instruction from your office. And if you're teaching, you can't teach from your desk. Not effectively anyway. You can't. Because you got to see what kids are putting on that paper so you can correct their thinking. Okay. So I believe that when we go in and out of classrooms, we confuse teachers. You can't serve two masters. Here's what the word says, and I'm not proselytizing. Here's what the word says. You cannot serve two masters. You're going to cleave to one, and you're going to despise the other one. But sometimes we send teachers in circles. And we say, what you did, oh, that was good. And then another person comes right behind you, and what they got praise for, they get criticism for. So I developed these calibrated instructional leadership prompts that say, hey, administrators, don't confuse teachers. Have one set of expectations and don't change them based upon personality. Number one, can I find an objective when I visit your classroom? Because a classroom without an objective is like me driving back to D.C. where I live without a roadmap. I might get there, but not without a series of needless wrong turns. Second, what kind of objective is on the board? Is it flawed? Is it just an activity? Is it content-driven? Is it good but it's not good enough? Or is it performance-based? As I say, I'm going to teach you this so you can do that. And if it is flawed, give people feedback without killing them. And if it's content-driven, give people feedback without making them feel like you're talking down to them. And if it's performance-based, thank them and excuse them from the next professional development that they need to go to. Okay, because that's one thing that made me mad as a teacher. Wait a minute now, I did what you asked me to do, and I got to sit here with the people who didn't? And then finally, could kids locate it? Was the location of the objective good? And could kids see it from their desk? Because that objective is, if that objective is this small, it's not for kids, it's for compliance. If it's big enough for them to see from their seat, and the definition of every word that's in it, it's actually for a commitment to children. Okay, so I'm going to transition here, and I'm only going to probably get through two of the practices unless you all give me a little more time today. But here's the second practice. After the first month of the school year, I recommend you keep the objectives on the board, that one-sentence statement. Keep it on the board, right? But then have a second focus on making sure that everybody in the district has a focus on making sure that kids are picking up words. What kind of words? General words that cross grade levels and disciplines. I'm going to show them to you in a second. And then domain-specific words like onomatopoeia that live only in the ELA classroom. Fraction lives only in the math classroom. Sovereignty lives only in the social studies classroom. Okay? Now, but how do you make sure that kids are picking up new words? I have 9 strategies for you that, and I'm not saying administrators, if you walk into a classroom, you got to see all 9 of these or somebody gets a ding. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if there's an opportunity for kids to pick up new words, these are some of the strategies you might pull from to help kids pick up new words. Are y'all with me? Because edicts, like you said, Dr. Wright, they don't work. You know what an edict is. It's top down. It's got to be inside out. Okay, number 1, annotation of the objective. Watch this. Okay, you guys are going to become 8th graders without 8th grade behavior. Students will be able to cite strong and thorough textual evidence in order to support an analysis of what the text says explicitly and inferences drawn from the text. That means nothing to the average 8th grader, but it's the state's expectation. Are y'all with me? So what do you do for kids in this setting? We got to ask them what? Do you see any words you don't know how to say? So pretend you're 8th graders. Tell me the words you can't say. You said cite, so I guess you can say it, okay? Okay, they might say kite. Right? And then you say to them, that word is sight. Everybody say sight with me. Sight. Good. What's the next word? Okay, that word is not through, 8th graders. That word is thorough. Everybody say thorough. Thorough. Good, good. Is there another word you can't say? Analysis. Everybody say analysis. Analysis. Okay, good. Now, are there any words that you don't know what they mean? Call them out. Explicitly. We're going to talk about it. Good, I'm ready. Inference. Good, we're going to talk about it. Textual, thank you so much for being brave, and thank you for not making fun of kids who want to know, because knowledge is power. That's your culture, because your culture will eat your strategy for lunch. Shift your culture. Okay, is there another word that y'all not getting on my nerves by telling me if there's another one? I'm here for you. I love you. I'm trying to prepare you for the world. Is there evidence? Okay, is there another one? Say it again. Sight, yeah. Okay, the whole thing. Okay, got it, no problem. Now, I'm ready to talk to you about every one of these words, and you interrupt me if you need me. Okay, the first word we're going to talk about is cite. Have your parents ever gotten a ticket on their car? That's a citation. And what's on that citation? The time, how much they're going to have to pay, and you know what else is on there, y'all? The location of where the car was parked. So when we're talking about citing textual evidence, it's no different than the location of where the car is parked. It's the location of where the textual evidence is parked in the text. So when I say citation, I want you to think one word, location. Citation, Yeah, it's the page number, it's the paragraph, it's the line number of where the textual evidence has been parked by the author of the text. The next word we need to talk about is strong. Something that's strong is able to do what it's supposed to do. It does not go forward and return void without having accomplished its purpose. It's powerful. So when I say strong, what do you say, seventh graders? Whatever grade y'all in, eighth graders? Powerful. Now, when I ask you to give me powerful textual evidence, I want you to give me the best evidence you can find and lets me know you fully understand what I'm asking you. So strong, what do you say? Citation, what do you say? Okay, good. Let's do the next word, thorough. Something that's thorough is done with great care and completeness. Sort of like my prom outfit when I finished high school, y'all. I was thorough. My blue socks, my blue cummerbund, my blue tie. My date had a blue dress, and we had a blue rental car. We were complete. So when I ask you to cite thorough textual evidence, I don't want you to ask me how many sentences I want you to write. I want you to be complete in your response. So what does thorough mean? Complete. Okay, let's keep going. Textual. I see a suffix on textual. What is it? UAL. What does UAL mean at the end of a word? Of. So what does textual mean? Of the. I'm not asking you to lean to your own understanding. I'm telling you go to the text. Now, there's a word there after textual. What is it? Evidence. And what does evidence mean? Give me a word that starts with a P. Proof. So what is textual evidence? Proof that came from the. Don't you act like you don't know this word. Okay, now support. What's holding up the chair that you're seated in today? It's got legs on it. So when I'm asking you to support your response to the question, I'm asking you to hold it up by doing what? Go back to the text. Be complete in your response. Give me the most powerful evidence you can find and tell me exactly where you found it. We're almost there. Analysis. When you analyze something, you do not break it down. I'm sorry you've been told analysis means break down. It actually means break apart. So everybody look at your wedding hand. We're going to analyze your wedding hand. Tell me what it has. Tell me the parts. Fingers. That's your left hand, y'all. How many fingers do you have? Don't you say 5. I mean 4. And, what else? Palm. Okay, so somebody said ring. I don't want, because you take your ring off, you still have a hand. Now, you may have less of a headache, but you still have a hand. So when you analyze something, you pull it apart. So when I ask you to analyze this paragraph, you're pulling that paragraph apart into sentences. And those sentences apart in phrases. And those phrases apart into words. And those words apart into word parts. That's how you analyze something. You break it apart. Okay, now, the last 2 words, explicit. We're going to be analyzing what the text says explicitly. Now, look around this room. Do you see that prefix, EX, anywhere else in this room? Yeah. What's EX mean in front of a word, 8th grade? Out. So exit means go out of it. And something that's explicitly stated is outwardly stated in the text. And the last word we need to know before we do any work is inference. And what's an inference? It's not an educated guess. It's a what? A logical assumption. That's based upon what? Information from the text plus prior knowledge and. Okay, now look. So watch what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. Watch what I put on the screen in red. We're going to be noting the location of powerful, complete words that are taken directly from the text to hold up the parts of what is stated and assumed. Thank you, young lady with the blue hair. I'm going to hug you later, okay? All right. Yes, ma'am. Now, why does she say, do this, man? Why does she say that after I did this activity? What if this happened for children for 180 days from pre-K to 12? So people think you got to buy something. No, you got to get the same knowledge around academic language. And because it'll make you critical of what you do buy. Okay. So that when we put the objective back on the board and we say to kids, what did I tell y'all to remember when I said cite? Strong, thorough, yeah, textual evidence, yeah, support, yeah, this thing moving a little slow. It's supposed to be faster than that. Analysis, yeah, explicitly, yeah, inference, logical assumption. And look, maybe I have some English language learners in my classroom. I don't want you to draw anything. I want you to do what? Make inferences. This is what kids need in a really, really prominent location in your classroom. And anyway, what's all that other stuff we've been required to put on the board anyway? With painter's tape and days of the week. What is our agendas? What is all of that stuff that is not for children? I want you to rethink it. Because we've been doing it for a long time, and has it had any impact on student achievement? So if it applies to ELA, it could apply to mathematics. But I want to go here. I'm going to show you the universal language of literacy. What is universal language of literacy? Where do you see these words in your work, Little Rock? Everywhere. They're in the standards, I heard you. Where else? In your assessments, where else? In your textbooks and your teacher-generated assessments? They're everywhere. That's why I call it the universal language of literacy. Now, what do you notice in the grade columns? There's 3 grade columns there. What do you notice? What's shocking to you? Most of them start at what grade, y'all? Kinder. So I had a person argue me in Chicago, a board member argue me in Chicago. She said, are you telling me that kindergartners need to know the word analyze? Yes, ma'am. She said, well, I've been in kindergarten for 20 years. Kindergarten teacher for 20 years. Well, hopefully my kid wasn't in your class. I thought that in my head, y'all. Because she was on the board, y'all. I had to eat it. But what I did say to her was, not only do I disagree with you, but so does the entire international reading community. That kids can handle that word analyze as a kindergartner if you put it in front of them. Are your expectations too low, though? Because what people will say, oh, these kids, they can't do these. That's code for something. So if that word is up here and a K is next to it, they should have seen it multiple times before they end up in 6th grade. But what definition? Do me a favor. What's an argument? Get something in your head for me, please. What's an argument? Here is what the writers of the assessments assume we've been telling kids as early as 3rd grade, that there are words that are presented to change thought or to change action, and an argument is not a solid argument unless it has 4 components: a claim, a counterclaim, and reasons and evidence to support the claim. Are we sure that's what we've been telling kids as early as 3rd grade in every classroom in Little Rock? What's analyze mean? It's the process of separating something into its constituent parts or elements for the purpose of study or for the purpose of examination. We say, well, Doc, I teach kindergarten. Am I going to give that definition of kindergarten? No. The baby definition is inside of the big definition. What's the baby definition? Break into what? Smaller parts. They can handle it. So I was with a group of kids, and the term, an adult said to me, Dickey, I think you're pie in the sky. Basically, that's what the adult said to me in the room, and said, this is too complicated for our kids. These kids can't even read. So I said, well, bring me some kids. So here's what they did. They brought me a little rainbow coalition, one from every continent. Set them right in front of me. So I said to the little coalition, I said, hey, we're going to be talking about key details for a few seconds. Can anybody tell me what you think they are? And a Latinx girl raised her hand. 1st grade. How old are they in 1st grade, y'all? 6. She said, sir, I think when I go home sometimes, I have to put the key in the door. By the way, key details, they're important words and phrases that are used on purpose by the author to convey something to the reader. So she said, when I go home, I put the key in the door. I didn't shut down her background knowledge because her background knowledge is not mine. So I said, tell me more. She said, well, just like the key opens the door, I think the key details open the main topic. And you know who I looked at? The person who said they couldn't. Yes, they can. If we have a conversation with them, there's some knowledge that they have that we can connect to. But do we have the freedom to do it? And if we do have the freedom to do it, do we have the operational definition at our disposal that we all agree to push in? Okay? Main idea. Y'all, what do you think main idea is? I'm going to show you something powerful. If I gave everybody in this room a Post-it note, I would get as many people as I have in this room, I would get that many different answers. But what does the psychometrician say? It's what the text is mostly about, not story, Because remember, main ideas, stories don't have main ideas. They have themes and morals and lessons and central ideas. Informational texts have main ideas. That's why it says text and not story. Y'all with me? And so are we prepared as we're coming into this new school year to make sure that all children have access to an operational definition of these really important 36 terms that cross grade levels and disciplines? And are they in our classrooms like you might see a number line in a math classroom or a map in a social studies classroom, okay? Hopefully I get invited back to talk to you about this anchor chart collection, but I don't have time to do it today. Okay, do your word walls look like this or do your word walls look like that? Because if your word walls look like that and they don't look like that, all you have up is decorations. The one on the left, y'all, is decorations. The one on the right is for children, as long as they can see it from their desk. Now, remember I said to you that there are 30 prefixes, 30 root words, and 30 suffixes that make up most of the words that kids are going to see and not know what they mean. Okay, what's a prefix? It's a word part added to a root word that creates a new word. Or a prefix is a word part that's added to a base word that creates a new word. What's a root word? It's a word part to which a prefix can be added to create a word. What's a root word? It's a word part to which a suffix can be added to create a word. What's a suffix? It's a word part that's added to the end of a base word or to the end of a root word, and it creates a word. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate something. I'm going to use you as my students. And if your children can tell you with automaticity what these mean, they're going to not only be able to decode at the grade level expectation, they're going to be able to create meaning at the grade level expectation. Some kids have an issue with decoding. Some kids have an issue with creating meaning. Some kids have an issue with both. You know, the kids in that RTI pyramid where it's red, they have an issue with both. So do me a favor. Tell me what that means in front of a word. Did you hear those different answers? There's one answer for it that's going to stand the test of time. Now use it in a word. Okay, I heard you. What does that mean at the beginning of a word? Use it in a word. Use it in a word. Circumference, right? Circumnavigate. I heard it with. When you go to a Mexican restaurant, you order chili con queso, that's chili with cheese. What? Y'all didn't know that? Okay. Okay. Give me, what does that mean? Okay. Got that one. What does that mean? I ain't hear it yet. Not. But what did you do in your head? You generated a bunch of words that use them and you stepped back from them. But what if kids can't do that? They don't have a chance. Okay, let's go to root words. Sometimes a root word can be at the beginning of a word. What does that mean in a word? It's not sound. Give me a word. Audible. Yeah. Auditorium. Yeah, good. What does that mean? Give me a word. Benediction. Process of saying something good. Not order. Time. Something that's written chronologically is written in order using time. Something that's written sequentially is written in order without time. Yeah, chronos and kairos. Yes. Okay. Say. Dictate. You dictate a letter, you say it, somebody else writes it. What point am I trying to make? I'm not testing you. Here's what I'm saying. If kids don't know these like this, they won't create meaning at the grade level expectation. They'll just be word callers. Okay, apathy, no feeling. Antipathy, feelings against. Sympathy, with someone. Empathy, E, feelings if you're coming out of someone else's shoes. Telepathy, to send feelings from far off. Let's do suffixes real quick. What does that mean at the end of a word? Related to, or pertaining to. Historical. Aggravate, initiate. Become initiated. Teacher, professor. Yo, these are not widely known by our kids, but these end up on the assessments. And they end up in the words that seem complex to kids and above their heads. So here's what we do. When we teach these, we, instead of bringing the text down to kids, we bring children up to the text. When? 180 days. For how many years? 13. You know, look, underperformance is not about the zip code. It's about the quality of the instruction inside of the zip code. Okay, last one here, so I'll move on here. Watch this. Why is this important? So that when kids are in our classrooms and they're reading something, and hopefully at the secondary level, they're not just learning about stuff through lecture, that they're also learning about it through reading. because reading is breathing in and writing is breathing out. And if they don't get chances to breathe out, then we retard their ability to demonstrate their knowledge through writing. Okay, so the goal is to say to kids, no matter what grade, no matter what discipline, we're going to read something, but before we read it, tell me about the words you don't know what they mean. Guess what they're made of? Guess what the words are going to be made of? 9 out of 10 of them, they're going to be made out of what? The same word parts. And then we have kids write in the margin, and then they read the text. This is so that we don't bring the text down to children, that we instead bring children up to the text. We can do that, Little Rock, okay? Last thing I want to share with you, and I'm going to have them skip to my last slide so that you can stay in touch with me, is Tier 1 words. Tier 3 words are what? Words that you see in a typical content area course that you don't see in other courses. Characterization is a Tier 3 word for the ELA classroom. What's a Tier 2 word? A word that crosses grade levels and disciplines like infer, compare, contrast. Now, what's a Tier 1? They're the most commonly occurring words in the English language that kids encounter when they're learning to read, no matter how old they are, no matter how well they read, no matter how poorly they read. It's the foundation of words. You know what we call them? Oh, you went there too fast for me. You went there too fast. Or did I do that? Would you go back to that slide on Tier 1 words? Tier 1 words are the most commonly occurring words in the English language, and there's only a handful of them that if kids know them, they're going to be able to read more fluently and they're going to be able to spell better. Do your kids spell well? Are you satisfied with the way they spell? You got to start with Tier 1 words. Okay, so let me take you to Tier 1 words, and then I'll go back to the slide and I'll take my seat. So there are 315 Tier 1 words that kids need to know between pre-K and 3. And when I was a little kid, the teacher would hold up a word, away, and the whole group would have to say the word, away. And then the whole group would have to spell the word, A-W-A-Y, away. And the whole group would have to use the word in a sentence. Or sometimes the teacher would pull me over to her and watch the other class and give me a list of words to read. And the ones I didn't get, they went in a Ziploc bag and they went home with me. Y'all remember that? And so kids don't spell well because for that reason. And so there are 315 sight words that kids need to know on demand. So if you count up the number of grades between pre-K and 3, pre-K, K, 1, 2, 3. Divide that into 315, what do you get, Little Rock? 63. There are 63 sight words that, y'all got to move faster than that. There are 63, because it's a distraction. Y'all go faster for me, please. There are 63 sight words that kids need to know in pre-K and hold on to them when they get to kinder. And hold on to the ones from kinder so they can be prepared for the ones for first. And hold on, y'all with me? So as kids enter your building this year in 3rd grade, who's going to make sure that they held on to the ones or they were even exposed to the one from 2nd, and they held on to the ones from 1st, and held on to the ones from kinder, and held on to the ones from pre-K? Because if you don't, they will not read in a fluent manner. Are y'all with me? Okay, so here they are. Watch this. So here they are for pre-K. 220 of them are what are called service words. And what are service words? Adjectives and adverbs and pronouns and conjunctions like and yet and but and verbs. And here they are. And when I was a little kid, the teacher would say it. Everybody say it for me. Say it. Spell it. Say it. Use it. Because if they can use it, you know they understand it. Whatever happened to that? Here's what the brain research says. Children, while they're learning to read, they need 15 minutes of this a day. Are they getting it in Little Rock? Are they getting it in some classrooms? Because let me tell you where they're getting it in affluent communities. At home. I was in the airport recently, and there was a mom, and she had a set of index cards she made herself, and she made her little kid say those words to her. And when she messed up, mom said, you know this word. And the word was like from. And the kid was like trying to play in the airport. But the mom was trying to get her to focus on those sight words because mom understood that if her child understood those words, she would be a better reader. Okay. So here they are for kindergarten, and here they are for the other grades. And these are the high-frequency nouns that kids need to know, and there's 90 of these they need to know over the course of the school year. Now, I'm going to say this, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. There are 1,000 words that kids need to know once they get past the Dolch words in pre-K3 that are called Fry sight words, and they come in sets of 100. Here they are. And if you want kids to know the difference between their, T-H-E-I-R, and their, T-H-E-R-E, if you want them to be able to spell when they write, we got to stop telling kids spelling does not interfere with meaning. Try to get a job and you can't spell. And so if you're a secondary school or an upper elementary school, you have upper elementary grades in your school, how can you take this list of 1,000 words and divide them and say, okay, 3rd, 4th grade, y'all take these. 5th grade, y'all take these. Or you're a middle school, 6th grade, y'all take these. We'll take these. 7th grade, 8th grade, we'll take these. Or if you're a high school, because you never hear conversations about sight words past 3rd or 4th grade in this country. But if kids can't spell, it's like going to the hospital with 2 broken legs and somebody pull out your 2 front teeth. So the kids are telling us they can't spell, but you don't see sight words. Malpractice. Instructional malpractice. Okay. I think I've said enough. So these are the strategies for making sure that kids can pick up new words. Hopefully I'll get invited back to see you soon. Individual principals, I hope that you will, think of these ideas as something that could be a part of your instructional programming. Your chief academic officer, I know she's here somewhere. Dr. Wright, I'd love to be in partnership with you all as a school district, as the school year progresses, to help you to put some of this in place. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our Little Rock School District Board President, Mr. Greg Adams. Mr. Adams, you'll need to get the microphone on the table. Thank you. I'm coming to you, Mr. Adams.
Good deal. Thank you. Thank you. Woo. I can see why maybe he stood over here. Because that light's tough. Thank you very much, sir. I only caught a little what you said, but it was really enlightening and inspiring. Little Rock School District, on behalf of your Board of Education, I want to welcome you back to this school year. And for those of you who are brand new to Little Rock School District, I want to say a special welcome to you. Thank you for joining us in this great mission that we have to educate kids and make kids' lives better. And for those of you who came back, thank you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for sticking with us, especially these last couple of years, which have been really sucky, right? They've been a sucky couple of years. The pandemic just really is terrible, and it has affected us in so many different ways. And I wanted to say, besides saying thank you and welcome back, I wanted to leave you with one thing to think about that I've been thinking about, and because I've been thinking about that these last few years have really been traumatic. There's been trauma for the students that have been in your classroom, there's been trauma for the parents of your students, and there's been trauma for you and for me, because we have had so many losses, personal and otherwise, in the last few years. And some of you may know that that's part of my day job, which right after this, I'm going to go back to my day job, and I work at Arkansas Children's Hospital. And much of my work is with people who witness trauma and who experience grief and loss and trauma. And there's a story about trauma that has meant a lot to me, And I thought I would share with you in case it might be something that might mean something to you, and it might be something for us to think about together. And it's a pain and trauma kind of story, but it goes like this. There's this Hindu master, and this Hindu master had an apprentice, and he wanted his apprentice to learn something new and to go deeper into his learning. So he told his apprentice, he said, bring me a glass of water and a handful of salt. And so the apprentice did, and he said, now take the salt and put it into the water. Now stir it up. Now drink the water. Well, the apprentice wasn't too excited about that, but he was a dutiful apprentice, so he drank the water. He made a face, and the master said, how'd it taste? He said, it tastes salty, it's bitter. The master said, get another handful of salt and come with me. And he leads him down to the lake. He says, now put the salt into the water. Now stir up the water. Now taste the water. How's it taste? And the prince says, well, it tastes fine. It tastes fresh. He said, can you taste the salt? No. Then the master looked with some compassion at the apprentice. And he said, the salt is like the pain we have in life. And we may not be able to change that, but we can change the vessel that we put it into. So don't be a glass, but be a lake. And when I generally think about that story and I share that story, I think about that in terms of individuals, to encourage people to be lakes, to make space for it all. Because if we don't make space for the hard stuff, we don't make space for the good stuff either. And you know lake people, and there are lake people in this room who make room for it all. But in thinking about coming to here today and as a school year, I had a different thought that I just want to throw out to you because I don't know the answer to it, but I want to throw it out. I wonder what it would be like if we were, especially coming in this, dealing with these last few years of trauma, if we were a lake organization, if we were a lake district, where we made space for our kids who have the pain, and we made space for our families who have had trauma and loss, and if we made space for you and for me in all that we bring too, what would that look like? And what difference might that make as we try to do all the great things that were just talked about here? And I don't know that answer, but I think it's a good question, and I would love to try to figure it out with you and with everybody else as we each do our part and try to make this year the very best that we can make it. So thank you again for being here, for showing up in the past, today, and how you're going to show up in the days ahead. And I look forward to seeing what we can do together. Thank you, Dr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. At this time, we're going to have a few more door prizes, and we want to remind you, do not leave this building without getting your lunch in the cafeteria. So we're going to do some door prizes. Right now, we're going to ask cheerleaders to come from Little Rock Southwest. The first door prizes that we're pulling, not Kroger right now, but that's what's on the screen. We have some Chick-fil-A cards, so you can enjoy some lunch, compliments of Chick-fil-A.
Kenya Brooks. Forest Heights STEM.
Next. Pull another one, please. Go quickly.
Katie Leavitt from Robert Elementary School. Robertson.
Pull another one quickly, please.
Mary Jackson from Wakefield.
Another one.
Larry from Adult Education.
Probably Larry Schlischer.
That's it.
Now for a $100 Kroger gift card. We're going to pull two, please.
Teresa Harper from Metropolitan.
Go Metro.
Another $100 gift card from Kroger.
Kyle Hendrickson from ML King Elementary School.
An experience from 42, the restaurant 42. Admission for 4 and $75 gift certificate to the restaurant. So the Clinton Presidential Center and a gift certificate to the restaurant. A $120 value from VIPS.
Yeah. Melissa Kersey from Otter Creek.
A $200 value I Hike Arkansas State Parks package from VIPS.
Whitney Corey from Forest Park.
Thank you, cheerleaders, and Mr. Cochran. Dr. Wright.
That's it.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. All right. So we did allow Dr. Dickey to go over time just a little, and so we're going to shorten this segment because we want to make sure that we get everyone out by 11:15, or 11:15, 11:15. So in the few minutes that we have, we did provide opportunities for individuals to submit questions that they wanted Dr. Dickey to answer. So we're going to have a discussion using some of the questions that we received from educators across the district. And before I ask the first question, I do want to thank you for your presentation. There was a lot of powerful strategies and information shared, and you did ask to be invited back, and I will pray and see if we can make that happen.
Yes, sir.
And I know we don't have time for all of these questions, so I'm going to be strategic in terms of which ones that I ask, and I tried to get him to preview the questions beforehand, and he refused to do so. So this will be interesting to see how you respond. All right, here's the first one. And I can barely see. Can we put this on the teleprompter so I can read? Okay, question number 1. Across the country, there is talk about accelerating learning for students instead of remediating. In your work with schools, what is the biggest mistake people make when attempting to do this?
Yeah. There's a fine line, Dr. Wright, between remediation and acceleration. And I think that fine line has to be operationally defined. So remediation, typically, it is about going back, taking kids back to what they may not have learned and filling in a gap that they might have. That's the typical operational definition of remediation. And then the typical operational definition of acceleration is to move kids as fast as you can with your mind on the grade level expectation. I think both remediation and acceleration have a place in public ed, but it's hard to accelerate without an eye on remediation. So let's think about a 6th grader that reads like a 3rd grader. Yeah, you want that 6th grader to be exposed to standards at the 6th grade level. But in order to accelerate them at the grade level, and they don't read on grade level, you gotta say, tell me every word that you see in that 6th grade text that you don't know how to say. Tell me every word in that 6th grade text that you don't know what it means so that I can teach you at the grade level expectation. So it's not a remediation versus acceleration. They go hand in hand.
Excuse me.
Was it, yo, like that? Okay. Yeah.
All right, second question. You worked with school districts all over the country. What are some commonalities you've seen in districts who have significantly moved the needle on student achievement versus those districts who have remained stagnant?
Yeah, those that remain stagnant, they rely on packaged programming. And they tell people to follow the packaged programming with fidelity. That's that F word I hear everywhere I go where kids do poorly. And it's okay to have a packaged program, but what's not okay to ignore, I don't care what you buy, Dr. Wright, anything you buy is going to have a hole in it, or two, or three. And so when we force people to ignore the holes that are in it, like I worked with a school district in the southeast that shall remain nameless, and they paid $14 million for a reading program, and their test scores went backward. And I told them before they bought it, don't buy it. They bought it anyway. And so after they went backward, then they called me to fix it. And so my criticism wasn't the program, and it wasn't the organization that sold them the program. My criticism is page turning a program of study. So, because let me tell you who you give a script to, Dr. Wright, people you don't trust. Now, I'm not saying that all snowflakes are alike, because there's some folks that we have to give them a great level of support and give them strict guidance on the ebb and flow of their instruction. That exists in public ed, because we're not all alike instructionally. But to give a seasoned person that has a history of moving students a script and paint them into a corner, that's not fair to teachers.
So this next question is very similar, and it kind of ties in with the response you just gave, so I'll go ahead and ask it. Mm-hmm. We know that there is no perfect curriculum. However, we now have ways to evaluate curricular resources and know what are high-quality instructional materials versus those that are low-quality instructional materials. Some teachers don't like using literacy curricula and prefer to do what they know best. If you were a principal today, how would you handle this?
Yeah, we do know best, but best is based upon your students' past performance. So if you as a principal, because the question is me as a principal, so if I'm gonna just let somebody go at it alone, I'm gonna allow them to go at it alone as a principal if they have a history of moving kids, not necessarily getting them to proficiency, because you can't control who you inherit as a teacher in your classroom. So if I inherit kids and they're 3 grade levels below and I get them to 2 grade levels below before they leave my classroom, I've done something major. So maybe I didn't get them to the bar, but maybe I moved them. If you're that teacher, I'm not necessarily micromanaging your instruction. I'm evaluating it. I'm giving you tips. I'm partnering with you. I'm co-planning with you. I'm benefiting from your knowledge as a teacher, and I'm trying to spread that knowledge to other folks in the building. But if you don't have data and you're telling me you don't want me in your classroom, then I have an issue with that. And it's not because I have an issue with you as an adult. It means that I don't know you yet instructionally enough to not consistently observe your teaching and learning practices. And so what makes instruction good, or what makes curricular resources good, is that the curricular resources are aligned to the expectations of the state standards. So let me talk to you about one of your high school ELA standards. One of your high school English standards says that kids have to analyze U.S. seminal documents of historical and literary significance with a focus on themes, purposes, and rhetorical features. What the hell does that mean? And so people will read that standard, and if they don't have the curricular resources that were written for that standard, 9 times out of 10, they're not bad people. They're going to teach in a way that's misaligned with that standard. So we can't allow people to tell us that we have resources that are aligned to the standards if they're not written for the standard. And people who say they're aligned with the standard, typically they're a lying. And so we've got to protect children from lackluster instruction, which means we have to protect children from lackluster curricular resources with a whole bunch of empty promises embedded in them.
So, and this isn't a question that's written down, it's just a question that popped up in my head. So if you're leading a district and you have such a wide variety if you have a wide variety of performance levels of teachers,
yes,
how do you effectively manage what you keep tight or what you allow to be a little looser in terms of using curricular resources or
Dr. Wright,
placing guides? Or,
Dr. Wright, what you described is like the standard of service. Y'all heard me say it in my keynote. So what as a district, do we say we all believe in? So we believe in standards informed instruction. Our instruction should be informed by the standards. That should be held tight. I think if you ask me, and this could be unpopular, I think autonomy should be earned, not granted freely. And when we give people autonomy, you know what it creates freely? Chaos. Now, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be creative. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be creative in your own way in your classroom, and you should be given that latitude. But based upon the zip codes in your school district, all kids need access to similar quality resources. And if that's not happening, you're a tingling cymbal. You're a lie and the truth ain't in you. If you say you want what's in the best interest of children. And so for me, Dr. Wright, if we're going to hold people tight on something, it's going to have to come from the inside out. What do we say we believe in? That's the stuff you hold tight. Because if it comes from the top and we say, these are the things we hold tight, people will buck that just to buck it because they weren't included in the conversation about what we're going to hold tight. I would buck it too, because sometimes we make decisions at the administrative level and we don't understand the unintended consequences of our decisions on the folks who are closest to the work of teaching and learning. But let me say this, Dr. Wright, there are 4 kinds of pushback that you're going to experience as a leader. So if there are principals in the room, teacher leaders in the room, or you're an aspiring leader, or even for you as a superintendent, as I travel the country, I see 4 kinds of pushback, and they're all not the same. First kind of pushback that you're going to see is, I won't. Which is what? People have decided, I'm so politically connected, I don't have to follow the leader. That's dangerous. I'm connected to the board, so if I say something, if you say something to me, I'm going to go tell it, and then you're going to back off of me because you care more about your career than correcting me. And I know I'm dead wrong, but I'm connected, so I use my political connections to live inside of my obstinance. You asked me, Dr. Wright. I'm going to answer your question, sir. Now, the second kind of pushback, Dr. Wright, no matter what you buy, no matter what resource you have available to people, the second kind of pushback that you're going to get from folks, and this is all educators. Now, I'm not talking teachers. I'm a teacher, too. I'm talking everybody, is I will as long as you're looking. They'll do what you want, Dr. Wright, as long as they know you're coming. But let me tell you what we have learned, and I learned it as a teacher myself. I knew when the principal was not coming to my classroom. It was typically after lunch. So I went back and did the way I wanted to do it because I knew no one was coming. And unfortunately, you said it, Dr. Wright, that there are different degrees of proficiency in teaching and learning. And even a solid teacher, a high-performing teacher, needs and desires feedback. We have a responsibility even to the high-performing teacher to consistently give them feedback based upon the informal observations. I'm not talking about picking on people. I'm talking about informal observations of weaving in and out of classrooms all day long. My principal told me when I was in AP, I don't want you in that office during the day. Your job is to be inside a classroom so you can see what teachers need and what children need. And I heard the George Jefferson theme song in my head when I became an AP. Moving on up to the east side, deluxe apartment in the sky. I thought I made it. But here's what she was trying to tell me, Dr. Wright. Your classroom just got bigger. You're not a bouncer as an AP. The third kind of pushback you're going to see, no matter what you implement, no matter who you are, no matter what level of leadership, will be, I will if you show me. It looks like pushback, but they just need you to show them. That's why you can't get into a leadership position and forget what it was like to be a teacher. And people say things out of their mouth, Dr. Wright, like, well, I just know good instruction. Don't say that to people when you're getting ready to observe them. You got to know math to observe math. You got to know science to observe science. And then the fourth and final kind of pushback is, it's the saddest one, y'all. I can't. It looks like they're pushing back and they don't want to do what you're asking, but they don't have the capacity to do it. You can give that person professional development from the rising of the sun until the setting of the same. They don't have the intellectual capacity to do it. Or they're in the wrong seat. Like they're teaching 5th grade and they should actually be teaching another grade. Or they're teaching math and they should actually be teaching something else. Are y'all with me? And so you can't treat those 4 kinds of pushback the same. So you cannot treat the I won't, you gotta go to that person that they're connected with politically and say, I'm getting ready to correct your friend. That person that is I will as long as you're looking, you gotta constantly be weaving in and out of classrooms so that you can give them support and hold them to an expectation. Because let me tell you something, everybody wants to hold teachers accountable, but accountability without support is harassment. And that I will if you show me, teachers are like, okay, you want me to do something, show me exactly what it is you want me to do and I can replicate it. And that's most people in this district. And then the I won't, the I can't, I'm sorry, you gotta find another place for that person or you gotta separate them from public education.
In the time that we have left, which isn't much, I'll end with this last question and then we will close out. And I just lost the question. Where did it go? Anyway, I kind of know what the question was. So for educators who have been in this work for any number of years, whether it's 2, 3, 4, 5, and they've seen difficult situations, they work with challenging kids, have the desire and the interest to really want to do right by kids, but they are suffering from being able to believe that all kids can just because of the challenging experiences that they have been experienced over how many ever years they've been teaching. What would you say to an educator who may be feeling like they want to believe that all kids can, but based upon what they've seen and experienced, they may be struggling to believe that all kids can?
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes, Dr. Wright, we need to see some data to support it, to believe it. Like some people, you can say, you try this, try this, try this, try this, and things will get better. That's what Hypens and Linsky in their book, Leadership on the Line, 2008, call adaptive change. Like if you do these things differently, things will get better, just trust me, suspend disbelief. But adaptive change is very hard for people to be a part of because they don't know if their change, the change that they engaged in, is going to result in the result that they're hoping for. So then what do you do if you need a whole year to find out if something got better for kids? I think we got to celebrate small wins. I think that's one thing we don't do well as public educators as a nation. We look at autopsy data. Y'all know what autopsy data is. The school year is already dead. And we look back at the state assessment and we get all of our joy or all of our disappointment from a set of data that's 6 months old. And it doesn't make sense to me why we do that. So if you ask me, Doc, I think weekly we got to celebrate progress that kids are making. And when we do that and celebrate it and take time to celebrate it, and I think as school administrators, we got to celebrate as well, because public education can be thankless. So like, wait a minute now. I didn't taught them how to read. I didn't wipe their nose. I didn't help them with mental issues. I didn't fed them. And you won't say thank you? And so there are many ways to earn a living, less difficult than being an educator. And so if we want to retain the teaching force that we have, we got to learn how to start saying thank you, and we got to start celebrating small wins.
Any final or closing words for us?
Here's my closing thought for you, Dr. Wright and Little Rock. I mean, I meet a whole lot of superintendents around this world, and few of them have the character that Dr. Wright has. Few of them. And few of them possess the humility that he has. Because you get this job.
Okay, in closing.
I'm trying to compliment you, sir. Because this job can blow your head up, y'all. Because everybody wants, you go somewhere and there's a marching band everywhere you go. And balloons. Don't get caught up in that, Dr. Wright. So And here's what I'm trying to say about Dr. Wright. He has the humility and the character to do this work. And so I want to congratulate you, Little Rock, on having Dr. Wright as your superintendent. He's going to serve you well.
And on that note, we will close out our Convocation 2022 with just a few recaps or a summary. Thank you, Dr. Dickey, for your words of enlightenment, encouragement, and the specific information you shared with us on how we as a district can improve literacy within our district. And this is just one day, one event. I hope to be here for many, many, many years to come. But we are going to start a journey in our district to where we really focus on making sure that we do a better job of making sure that our kids are literate. Literacy is power. No need to rehash some of the things that we have already spoken earlier. But we have mass numbers of kids in our district who are leaving our system without the ability to be able to have a quality life, to get a quality job, to have quality post-secondary experiences. And as a district, I hope that is all of our commitment, and all of us are motivated by the fact that we want to do right by the kids in which we serve. This is a journey. We're not going to fix it all overnight. It's not going to be fixed next year. It's not going to be fixed a year after that. But if we start now making the changes that we need to make at the foundational levels in our district, and it starts well before we get to the classroom. There are some things that we need to do as a district in terms of how we operate, in terms of what our core values are and what we focus on and what we emphasize, and doing a better job of supporting those who are on the front lines in schools and in classrooms every single day. So today is the first day of a long journey. I'm thankful to be a part of this journey with each and every one of you, and we will be in contact and we will be communicating quite frequently in terms of what our plan and what our strategies are as a district moving forward. So thank you guys for being here in the audience today. I want to give a shout out to all of our educators who are at your school sites and in your offices. And we forgot to reference the wall. So if we can pop that up real quick. I do want to encourage you to, as you go throughout the day, as you go throughout the week, as you go throughout the rest of the school year, take time to acknowledge and highlight all of the great things that are happening in your schools. We are I was going to say our only, but we are our best cheerleader. And in order for us to change the narrative in terms of what people think about and believe about the Little Rock Public School District, it's going to take each and every one of us sharing the great and wonderful things that are happening in our school every single day. So with that said, I believe we have...
May I have the privilege of making a couple of quick announcements?
You sure can. This is your show.
Thank you very much. No, it's your show. So we're going to ask the band to go ahead and make its way back to the stage so they can provide some wonderful music as we're leaving. Those of you who won door prizes, we will follow up with you by email. You don't have to worry about contacting us. We will definitely contact you because you will have to sign for some of these prizes. We want to make sure of that. Also, be sure you stop by the cafeteria to pick up a delicious hamburger or a jumbo hot dog or a black bean burger for those of you who are vegetarians. Thank you again. We appreciate you, and we hope you have a wonderful school year. Thank you, Dr. Wright.
Have a great year.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple.